Hey everybody, welcome to Board Online, Board Offline. Today we're going to teach you the solo rules for Between Two Cities. So this, again, if you have not seen the first How to Play video I put out, which are the normal rules, the multiplayer rules, this video is going to assume you know those rules already, which are important for you to be familiar with prior to learning the solo rules. There's a link in the description below for that video if you need to check it out. But assuming you know those rules, let's get right into how to play Between Two Cities. Also, be sure to check the description below for ways that you can purchase Between Two Cities, as well as various ways you can support the channel. There are two solitaire modes for Between Two Cities found in the Solitaire Rules rulebook. We'll cover the full mode in this video, but if you'd like to play a less complex version that lasts about 10 minutes, simple mode is found in here as well. In the solo mode, the player will have 2 additional Automa players, so the total of 3 cities will be built. This means that the 2 Automas, Automaso and Automarta, will share a city known as Automacity. The player will have no part in building Automacity. In this solo mode, the player will be following the standard 3 rounds of building tiles, duplex tiles, and then building tiles. Any rules from a standard game that are not overridden by the rules for solo are played as normal. Automacity is governed by special rules and is not constructed in the normal 4x4 square. We'll discuss exactly how the Automas obtain the tiles shortly. Tiles in Automacity are always scored maximally, meaning that shop tiles are always scored as if they're optimally placed. House tiles are scored as if none of them are adjacent to a factory. All offices get the +1 bonus if there's at least 1 tavern in Automacity. Taverns are scored in the optimal way. So if Automacity has, for example, 2 beds, 1 music, and 1 bar, it would group these 3 together plus this one, scoring 10 points, instead of grouping, say, these 2 together and these 2 together, scoring 8 points. With park tiles, the Automa will always place them in separate pairs, and thus the Automa will aim for scoring maximally but may fail. For example, if the Automa ends up with 3 parks, they would be scored like this. So 8 points here and 2 points here. They would not be scored as 12 points. Factories are scored normally. Due to this scoring method, it is possible that the Automa will be able to score more points than it would be able to in a normal 4x4 grid. In the multiplayer game, tiles are placed directly into the city when they are assigned to that city. However, in the solo game, this is split into 2 steps. First, a tile is assigned to a city by being placed below that city, and then a little bit later, the assigned tiles are then inserted into the city by the player. The full mode solo game uses the same steps as a normal 3-player game, with 2 Automas taking the place of 2 human players. However, there are some rule changes to handle assigning and playing tiles for the Automas. Shuffle this deck of Automa cards and place it face down within reach. Draw 2 duplex tiles and insert them directly into Automa's city before beginning the game. Insert them in such a way as to create rows of buildings of the same type like this. So if you have 2 of the same kind, they'll overlap like this. After this brief setup, the player plays the 3 normal game rounds with the following changes. A hand of 7 building tiles are drawn for each player, but they're all placed face up instead of kept secret on the table. The player uses these cards to help indicate which hand of tiles belongs to which player. It can be helpful to go ahead and lay out each of the 3 hands in an organized fashion, such as this, to speed play along as the game progresses. The Automas will each choose, assign, and insert their tiles one by one using the following steps, first with Automaso doing it, and then Automarta. Step 1 is to draw a random Automa card and place it face up in the play area. Step 2 is to assign a tile to the city the Automa shares with you based on the symbols in the player shared column. And step 3 is to assign and insert a tile into Automacity based on the symbols in the Automacity column. We'll discuss exactly how those symbols work in just a moment. It's important to note that the Automas will insert into Automacity immediately after they assign, and therefore the choice of Automaso must be taken into account when Automarta makes her choice. This is different than what happens with the player shared cities, where the Automas only assign tiles by placing them beneath the city until they're inserted by the player during step 5. Once both Automaso and Automarta have taken these 3 first steps, draw, assign, and insert, the player then takes steps 4, 5, and 6. Step 4 is to assign a tile from the player's hand to each of her cities as usual. Step 5 is to take the 2 tiles assigned to that player's cities, one from the player and one from the Automa, and insert them into the city as she sees fit. As always, be sure to follow the normal 4x4 restriction. Step 6 is to pass the hands of tiles around as usual, meaning to the left in round 1 and to the right in round 3. The player can do this by actually gathering up the tiles themselves and passing them to the cards, or instead by swapping the names of the cards around the table to indicate the hand has been passed. When it's time for the Automa to choose a tile for a city, go through the symbols in the applicable column, either player shared or Automacity, from top to bottom. The player stops on the first symbol that determines the tile to choose. So let's look at the symbols players will find on these cards in more detail. The house symbol indicates that a player should choose a house tile if the Automa has one in hand. Otherwise, go to the next symbol. The factory symbol indicates that a player should choose a factory tile if the Automa has one in hand. If not, go to the next symbol. This greater than symbol indicates the Automa will choose the tile that scores the most points given the current configuration of the city. This includes resulting score changes for other tiles, and for the player's shared cities, this should be based on the highest scoring placement of the new tile in the current city configuration. If a new tile type could be added to a city, then the extra points scored by each house in that city should be considered when making the decision. Similarly, office tavern bonuses for previously placed tiles should be considered as well. When considering assigning a factory, increased scores of previously placed factories should be taken into account. In other words, if a new factory would take the city from having the second most factories to the most factories, the 1 point increase of each already placed factory counts into the decision. If a factory absolutely cannot be avoided being placed next to a house, then the decrease in value of that house should be included in the decision. If multiple tiles with different symbols are equally applicable according to the rules we've just discussed, then instead choose the one that is most left on this row of symbols at the bottom of the Automa cards. The ordering is identical on all Automa cards. This grouping of symbols here indicates that if the city has at least one house tile, then the player chooses a tile type that is not currently in the city, assuming, of course, the Automa has one in hand. If the Automa has multiple options to choose from, the one that adds the most points is chosen. On the other hand, if these conditions are not met, then the player moves on to the next symbol on the card. In round 2, the player draws 3 duplex tiles, selects 2 for her cities and assigns them but does not insert them, and discards the third. She then draws 3 more duplex tiles, again assigns 2 to her cities, and discards the third. At that point, she will insert into the cities assigned the duplex tiles she chose. It should be noted that the Automas do not assign duplex tiles to the player's shared cities, and they already assigned duplex tiles to Automacity back prior to round 1 beginning. For round 3, repeat the steps outlined for round 1, except remember to pass the tiles to the right instead of to the left. After this point, all cities should have 12 city tiles and 2 duplex tiles in them. After round 3, you score up all cities just as you do with the multiplayer game. And out of your 2 cities, the lowest score is your score. And if you have the highest score out of all 3 players, you win the solo mode. The difficulty of solo mode may also be adjusted by following this chart in the solo rulebook. There are also rules in the back of the rulebook for a campaign mode in solo mode, but I'll leave those for you to read on your own. And that's how you play solo mode for Between Two Cities. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to my channel. Click the bell so you'll know when new videos come up. You can follow me over on Twitter @boredoffline. And until next time, if you're bored online, board offline.